So you want to learn how to stop being overworked in schools? Well, would you believe me if I told you all you had to do was say yes more? Yeah, I wouldn't believe me either. But here's the thing. Saying yes to requests on your time and energy can actually help you avoid being overworked. How? Well, by opening up a frictionless negotiation. What's that? It's simple. Before I explain that, let's explore how someone typically handles a conversation about adding more work to their plate. When someone says, "Hey, I need your help on this project," someone's typical response is usually one of two things. "Oh my gosh, yes, of course, I would love to help you out. In fact, there's nothing else that I would love to do more than help you." Or it looks a little something like this. "Oh my God, I can't believe you would ask me to do yet another thing. Don't you know I'm drowning right now? No." Okay, that's not really how people handle conversations, but you get the idea. Our default mode is to give binary answers, either yes or no. And unfortunately, a lot of times when we want to say no, we don't. Or when we do say no, it's not taken seriously or respected. Sometimes we might not even be comfortable saying no. Well, that's where frictionless negotiation comes in handy. Frictionless negotiation allows us to engage in a back and forth with the person requesting our time and energy in a way that leaves everybody walking away feeling satisfied, like they got what they need out of the negotiation. And it all starts with one simple word: yes. I've broken down the art of frictionless negotiation into 4 simple steps that you can use to implement this immediately. Step number 1, the yes. All you have to do to get started with this is just say yes. Say yes to the request, because the way that you start this conversation matters. I want you to think about how the other person is showing up to this conversation. Imagine what they want out of this. They want you to say yes to their request. So give it to them. Give them the yes that they want, and everything that comes next is 10 times easier. Because it completely eliminates and dissolves the friction between the two of you. In their mind, they've won. They don't need anything else from you. Their needs have been satisfied, and they can count on you. And this leads us to step number 2, the dilemma. This is where the real negotiation starts. This is your time to begin to set the terms of your agreement and how exactly you can carry out this task. Because no doubt you're gonna have concerns about taking this new responsibility on or dealing with this new project. This is your time to lay it out and to begin the back and forth of figuring out how you can take this on while also managing everything else you have going on. And it can look a little something like this. You know, I'm super excited that I could help you with this. And as you know, I just had 10 more students added to my classes last week, and I agreed to participate in interviews, and you know, I get called in for coverage all the time. I'm having a little bit of a hard time figuring out how I'm going to fit this request in here. It sounds really important, and I want to take it as a priority. And right now, I don't think I can give it the time and attention that it needs. You want to let the other person know that you take their request seriously, and you also take your work seriously. And right now, you're not sure how to do both, because you have a lot of other things going on. And that's okay. We all do. As a little side note, it's helpful in these situations if the person asking you to take on a new project has asked you recently to do something else that you're still working on. Now's a good time to bring that up in a way that shows them you're taking that request very seriously as well. And so now that you've presented your dilemma, you've explained that you want to take this request seriously, but you also don't have the time to do that right now. That's what brings us to step number 3, the options. At this point in the negotiation, you've agreed to do the task, and you've also thrown in a curveball as to how exactly you're going to be able to get this done. Because, after all, you're a very busy and hardworking person. This is where you lay out some options. And this becomes your opportunity to set the terms for how this request will be carried out, and how you can take on this responsibility without being overworked at the end of the day. And now this part requires some quick thinking. It's going to take some practice, and chances are you might stumble around a little bit when you're first trying to do this, but that's okay. The most important thing you want to do right now is offer limited, closed-ended options that are both realistic and easy to understand. I personally like to only give 2 options, and a good framework to get started can look a little something like this. So what I'm thinking is that I can either come back to this request in about 3 weeks when my schedule opens up a little bit and I can give it the time and energy it deserves, or I'm thinking if I didn't have to do interviews, that would free me up to take this on right now. Either way, I want to make sure that I can give this request the time and energy it deserves, since I know that's why you came to me in the first place. I do good work. And now that you've delivered your options, stop talking. Nothing will derail a negotiation faster than continuing to talk and invite opportunities for somebody to start creating their own options or coming up with their own ideas or beginning to negotiate your time and what you can and can't actually do at one time. Too often, I've seen people try to do this, and at the slightest hint of disagreement from the other person, or the slightest hint that they don't really like these options, they start talking. They start trying to backtrack and say, oh, well, maybe I could do it if that's what you really need right now. Of course, that's what they need right now. That's why they asked you to do it. They want it done right now. But do they really need it done right now? We'll find out, because after you've presented your options, keep the responsibility on them to decide what it is you two should do moving forward. You've done everything you need to do. You've said yes to their request, and you've given options for exactly how you could possibly manage to get it done. So just like when you ask a question to your class and all you get is crickets, it's time to wait. When they do respond, you're likely to get one of 2 things. One, they pick one of your options, and now you have successfully set the terms for how you can avoid being overworked while still taking on this request and this responsibility. Or 2, they're not going to like either of your options, and that's okay. They will offer their own, trust me. And if they start to offer their own ideas, this can get a little bit tricky in terms of negotiation. So you might need to have these conversations a couple of times before you feel comfortable navigating a secondary negotiation of the options. But be sure to stick as closely as you can to your original options that you came up with. Because after all, your goal is to be able to take on this request without being overworked at the end of the day. And in order to do that, the other person has to make some sacrifices. So make sure that whatever you agree to is not a one-sided request where you just say yes wholeheartedly. But there is a third hidden option. It's personally my favorite. Sometimes, if you're really lucky, you say yes, you explain your dilemma clearly, and you offer really good options, you might get the elusive third response. On second thought, it's clear you're very busy and hardworking. I want you to prioritize what you're already doing, and I will take this request to somebody else. Bingo! That's how you win a negotiation. While the third option of just being released from the request entirely is not always typical, it is nice when it happens, and it can happen. It's happened to me when I've used this method. And the key is making sure you position yourself as someone who does take this request seriously, along with all of the other responsibilities that you have. Because if you come off as somebody who's just trying to get out of work, this system will fall apart. And unfortunately, this won't work for everyone. There's some work environments and work cultures and bosses who just simply won't take any kind of no, yes, negotiation or otherwise, and will just simply say something like, you know, everyone else around here is doing a lot too. Just get it done. In that case, you're f***ed. Just pack up, head home, and do a light bit of crying. Works every time. But seriously, if you're in a work environment where the expectation and culture of the building is to take on any requests and any responsibility at any cost, the system probably won't work for you. And I would encourage you to find a place where it will work, because this kind of negotiation works in a culture of respect, a culture of mutual respect. And if you don't have that in the place where you work, well then chances are this simple system is not going to be the way to get it. And unfortunately, this is a bigger topic for another video. But if you do find yourself in a position where you feel confident and comfortable that this negotiation has gone well and you've agreed on a good option that works for the both of you, that takes us to step 4, the agreement. If you've gotten this far, congrats. This is the easy part. Simply review your agreement on what you've been asked to do and how you've agreed to do it and end the conversation. That's it. While it's extremely simple, I leave this part in because it can be helpful after a negotiation or a back and forth to review what it is you've agreed on to make sure you're still on the same page. And then when you are, you can end the conversation there and move on with the rest of the day, knowing that you have avoided being overworked. But also, you do want to make sure that you don't stick around in these conversations and invite alternative ideas that might include you abandoning the whole reason you had this conversation in the first place. You know, actually, I was thinking I really need this done now, so instead of in 3 weeks, can you do it next week? You don't want any part of a secondary negotiation, so all you need to do is disappear.